Welcome to the Women Beyond Empowerment panel. My name is Elizabeth Nolan Brown. I am a senior editor at Reason Magazine and the co-founder and president of the libertarian feminist nonprofit Feminists for Liberty. I'm really excited to be here tonight, and I want to thank Amara Legal Center for having me moderate this panel that we're going to have tonight, which is going to be wonderful. And I'm going to pass this to Lori Sims, who is the Advancement Committee Chair and board member, to go over a few more details.
Oh my God, thank you so much, Elizabeth. I really appreciate you being a moderator for us today for this amazing Women Beyond Empowerment event. My name is Lori Sims. I am the Advancement Committee Chair and also a board member at Amara Legal Center. I'm coming to you guys today to tell you what this is really all about. What is this event about? It is about raising awareness, providing information, and also being able to reach out to everybody and let them know that, hey, we need your support. We do need you guys' donations, and we would really, really appreciate it if everybody would be able to do so. I'm going to give you some 3 ways on how to do that, but before I do, I want to take you through a little housekeeping items, okay? First things first, for any individual that is currently on your cell phone and you want to broadcast onto your TV, so that means you want to take it from your little itty bitty phone and you want to cast it to your big screen TV, because this event is going to be dynamic, it's going to be amazing, and you want to hear it in live and living color, right? Yeah. So what I want to do is just walk you through the instructions on how to do that. So go ahead, look at the slide. It's going to show you exactly step by step of what to do. First, what you want to do is you want to make sure your mobile device, tablet, whatever you're on right now, is on the same internet network as your television. Yes, they have to be on the same Wi-Fi. Secondly, you want to open the YouTube app. If you're hearing my voice in the background, that means you're scrolling through Instagram, you're scrolling through Facebook, doing something you shouldn't be doing. So come back to us. Pull up your YouTube app, okay? In the top corner of your YouTube app is going to be the cast icon. You want to make sure that you guys press the cast button. I'm waiting, okay? The cast button is a square that looks like it has a little Wi-Fi symbol in the corner of it. It's right here. Oh, nope. There we go. It's right there on this slide for you guys. Tap the cast button. Now, next thing you want to do is just choose your device that you want to cast to. If you're like me, you got a million TVs. I got a TV in every room. So make sure you cast to the right TV, okay? And once you do that, voila, I should be right there on your big screen TV. I'm going to give you about 10 seconds to get this. If you guys are struggling, go to the youngest person in your house, and I'm guarantee you they can do it in jiffy quick, okay? Kids know how to do all this stuff. So I'll give you 10 seconds. Now, for some of you guys who are also watching, what you want to make sure that you do use your phone for is that you're monitoring your chat, okay? So that you guys can monitor the chat, because we will be using the chat box below to, you can ask questions, you can see some of our donate links, and you can also interact with the crowd. So please, please, please use the chat feature if you want to. We'll be in there to make sure that you guys are heard, okay? So the next thing that I want to do for you guys is I want to let you know a little bit about Amara. First things that you want to know is that Amara is a 501c3 organization. Now, what does that mean? Why does that even matter? That means that all of your donations are tax deductible, okay? All of your donations to Amara Legal Center are tax deductible. If you need a letter, tax donation letter, please, please, please email us at info@amaralegal.org and we will get that to you. But no, we are a 501c3 and everything is tax deductible, okay? So why would you even want to give to Amara? Like, what does Amara do? So I'm going to give you a little insight on what Amara is, okay? The Amara Legal Center, we like to be a part of the solution, okay? We've been serving nearly 200 clients annually. The Amara Legal Center is the only organization in the DC metro area that provides free legal, yes, free. There's nothing free today. Free legal services exclusively to people whose rights have been violated through involvement in commercial sex. Through direct legal representation, Amara's attorneys help the clients with a broad range of issues, okay? Things like obtaining legal protection from abusers, expunging or sealing unjust criminal records, reunifying families that would, listen, they wouldn't otherwise have the opportunity to do that, because how many of you guys know that legal services cost a lot? A lot. So I want you guys to know that your donations are helping out, helping somebody get greater education, greater housing opportunities, greater employment opportunities, okay? So our attorneys are with our clients every step of the process, ensuring that the services that are rendered are tailored to the individual need of each client, recognizing that the individuals have experienced and endured intense trauma. Our legal center and all of our attorneys are trauma informed and victim centered, and that's something that we really, really stand on here at Amara Legal Center. Okay, we also provide training opportunities to lawyers, social services organizations in the community. These trainings teach service providers how to be aware of signs of trafficking, identify survivors, and how best to refer those survivors for support. Expanding our view into policy. Ooh, yes, we are in DC. Y'all know policy is a hot topic. But we are a part of the larger policy conversation. Amara advocates for policies and laws to help stop unjust prosecution of victims and the individuals that we serve. So, all that to say, donate. You have no reason why you shouldn't be able to donate, why you don't want to donate. And I'm going to give you guys 3 ways, yes, 3 ways on how you can donate. Very simple. First thing you want to do is check out this slide. No, one day I'm going to get it right, okay? Let's check out this slide. 3 ways to donate for a lot of you guys who are old school. Go ahead and send that check, 1629 K Street, Northwest, Suite 300, Washington, D.C., 20006. Okay, yes, we collect checks and we will take yours. The other thing that you can do that doesn't cost you a penny is shop on Amazon. Smile.amazon.com. Amazon donates a portion of the proceeds to Amara Legal Center. You have to do nothing but what you're already doing, which is go shop on Amazon and select Amara Legal Center as your beneficiary organization of which you would like Amazon to donate to. Yep. So you buy a $10 shirt, Amazon will donate a portion to Amara Legal Center on your behalf. Super easy, super fun. It's amazing. The next thing you do is just go to amaralegal.org/donate. That is our main donation site. You can go there to Network for Good. It's a direct link to where you can donate and see how your funds that you donate are utilized within Amara. We will put the link in the chat below right now. Okay. So last but not least, what I'm going to do is give you guys a little disclaimer. Yes, we are lawyers and we love disclaimers. This is going to be a lively discussion, an amazing discussion with various different participants. So we just wanted to let you guys know that the views and opinions expressed tonight are those of the panelists and do not necessarily reflect the official policy, opinion, or position of the Amara Legal Center. Okay, so just know that those views and opinions that are expressed don't necessarily reflect Amara. However, we wanted to give you guys a wide range of perspectives, opinions, and personalities because that's what makes the world go round, right? Is getting input from everybody so we can come to a great solution and have well-informed discussions, okay? So without further ado, I'm gonna pass it off to my girl, Elizabeth, and she's gonna take you guys for a ride. Elizabeth.
Okay, I'm going to start back off by introducing our panelists. So first up, we have Shanika Amaba, who is a licensed practical nurse and survivor advocate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Shanika Ampa. I am a mother, a wife, a mentor, a nurse. I'm also a survivor of childhood sexual abuse and childhood human trafficking. I do so much here in Miami-Dade County. I am also a survivor leader nationally. We have traveled to DC to fight policies and make my voice known and heard about what I believe have been the issues when it comes to human trafficking. I'm so excited for tonight. I would like to truly thank all the works that this organization does. When I was asked would I participate, I could not say no because I know firsthand that a lot of issues a lot of legal issues is what holds people in bondage. You're always trying to figure out where I'm going to get a good job, but you have that legal issue following you. So I really, truly appreciate all the work that Amara does. And let's get the night started and share our views. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Next up, we have Michelle Salzman, who is an Army veteran and Republican candidate for state representative in Florida's House District 1. Michelle, do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Michelle Salzman. I am the representative for Florida State House District 1. That means that I represent the panhandle of Florida at the state legislature. So we write laws and all that good stuff. But I just recently became that. Before that, I was a full-time community volunteer, and I'm a mother of 3 amazing children, and I have an amazing husband who tolerates all the crazy ideas that I come up with, like running for office. But as far as this is concerned, I know, right? As far as this is concerned, my history is just it's pretty long and intense. I've had a long, hard life, and I've written a lot about it. I've spoken at a lot of conferences, a lot of women empowerment conferences. And so just depending on what we're working with, I'll highlight some things. So I'll just share with the audience today. I am a survivor and a thriver of childhood sex trauma. I was sexually molested by my family for many years. It was a generational thing, something that just happened to be that way. And I know a lot of families have that. My mother survived human trafficking for decades before she was able to get out of it. So we have generations of that, and I have been able to be a cycle breaker in my family. I am proud to say that I have raised my children in a very safe environment, and we've been very big advocates on women and families, and really just caring for the children, obviously. I have been a big proponent of human trafficking awareness for about 5 years now. I've been a part of, we have what's called a human trafficking task force here in Pensacola. It's a state mandated thing. And we basically meet once a quarter, a lot of us in the community leaders, and just talk about what we can do to raise awareness and to prevent that child trafficking issue. I'm also a previous board member of Junior League, and our Junior League, I don't know if people in this audience know, but Junior League is a huge, huge advocate for helping the human trafficking issues all across America. So we've done a lot of really cool things with that too. I look forward to the panel today and talking about some of my history that I had after I got out of the Army and was in an abusive relationship. I ended up being homeless and became an exotic dancer. So I look forward to talking with you guys about that.
Thank you very much, Michelle. Last up, we have Colonel Sarolyn Morgan, who's a victim assistance specialist with Homeland Security Investigations. Hi, Sarolyn.
Hi, good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here. Thank you for this opportunity and privilege. Thank you for inviting me to be a part of this distinguished panel. How amazing is that? But I am a wife of almost 25 years. My husband and I, we have 2 teenage children, so we are empty nesters. And I'm so excited to say that I am also a thriver. I was called to this work before the age of 7 when I experienced sexual trauma at the hands of my paternal uncle. And so I'm so excited to be here. Lots of other trauma in childhood. We can talk about that as we go along. But domestic violence in my home. My mom was a single parent. I started driving at 8. So I've got lots of stuff that equips me to do the work that I do today. And so it's such a privilege to be able to walk along hand in hand with the individuals who are coming out of this life and this struggle and these traumas. And so I'm so delighted to be able to partner with them, to share the resources, and to help them take their voice and their power back. So my whole goal is to empower them to be the people that they choose to be. It's so difficult when you try to do it alone. So I live in the Texas area, and I work for Homeland Security. I've worked for Homeland Security since 2016. I've been in the military for over 30 years. I take care of military sexual trauma, combat operational stress, which is behavioral health in the military. That's my area of expertise. That's what I've done since 1995. So it's a privilege to do what I do and to have it as a profession. So I'm really glad that I get to do this work, and I'm glad to serve with you all tonight. And I'm excited about what beholds tonight. And I will say again, as our first speaker said, legal issues is such a huge barrier for our clients. So I just want to throw that out there, and I want to thank Amara for what they're doing and those that they give a clean slate to.
Thank you. That's a really good segue to our next thing here, which is a video from the Amara Legal Center, and it tells the story of how they helped someone clear a criminal record from prostitution. This hindered her from joining the military and getting adequate employment and moving beyond this victimization and actually thriving, like you guys were talking about. So we're going to cut to that video right now.
Primer, and I am the Executive Director of the Amara Legal Center. Today I'd like to share with you the story of one of our clients. She's a young woman who grew up in a difficult family situation. And at the age of 18, she left to go to college. And unfortunately, while she was there, she met a man who was not interested in her for the right reasons. She became a victim of human trafficking. This man coerced her into the commercial sex industry against her will through threats and violence and manipulation. When the film is over, I'll come back to you and let you know how you can support the Amara Legal Center and our mission to provide free legal services to individuals whose rights have been violated by commercial sex.
I first met this woman maybe over a year and a half ago. And her, like many survivors that don't really identify with the typical human trafficking kind of one-on-ones, because it's very sterile and it doesn't actually talk about the truth.
I'm writing because my past continues to haunt and torture me, even after I've tried so desperately to separate myself from what I once was. I am one semester away from getting a master's in foreign policy. I have also volunteered assisting at-risk youth.
So she first started volunteering, doing street outreach, again at 3 a.m. to 7 a.m. And street outreach is right on the ground in high trafficking areas. So this is not where women are on drugs, and that's why. This is where people actually do have traffickers. And going through all of those trainings, and was definitely in a good place for that. And then she started kind of telling me more and more about her life. And I suggested the same person that helps Bleach is about all of our survivors, and that's Amara. And because they also help me and help expunge my records, we refer an awful lot.
I am in desperate need of your guidance and assistance. I myself was once a victim of sex trafficking. I was arrested for prostitution in Tennessee, only several days after my 18th birthday.
Hey, are you the guy from online?
Hey,
Yeah, I'm on my lunch hour.
Oh, come in. Let's talk.
I didn't expect you to be so beautiful.
Thank you. So, what do? You work close by?
Yeah, like I said, I'm on my lunch break. Look, daylight's burning. Here's the money. Why don't you start by dancing on the bed, and we'll go from there.
Okay. I'll just put the money on the desk, and I can dance for you, but this bed's a little shaky. What's going on?
I'll get the door. You stay there.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in the court of law. You have the right to a lawyer, which I assume your pimp can afford. And if you can't afford a lawyer, the court will provide you a public defender. Do you have any questions about your rights, sweetie?
Get in the restroom while we search the room. What we want to know is your pimp's name. Where is he? And how many girls he's running.
We'll buy you a plane ticket. Get you back home, sweetheart. Just give us what we want.
Please, I can't say anything, but I don't want to go to jail.
Then tell us who he is.
I can't. I don't have anything to say. I want a lawyer.
All right, let's go.
They didn't know home
She doesn't
was no better than my life being
She's agreeing to
trafficked.
know how this works.
I am fortunate to have gotten myself out through a series of events which would be too much to say in this email. I have been unable to get a good job. Even though it's my dream to serve my country, I cannot enlist. I have been passed over for every job because the arrest record for prostitution still appears in background checks. It's like no matter what I do, the world still holds me to my past, re-victimizing me over and over. Please help. I am desperate.
Thanks for reaching out to us. The world needs to realize that the criminal justice system is charging innocent people with crimes, and it's appalling. You are really incredible. We would absolutely love to help you. We have good news. Your record is eligible for expungement. We can assist you as you fill out the petition and send it to the clerk in Tennessee. There will be a hearing, but you won't have to attend. We can have a lawyer attend on your behalf for free. We can also cover the filing fee.
I would like to move forward. Thank you for all your help. Today, the petitioner is enrolled in a master's degree program in foreign policy and aspires to work in law enforcement from a desire to help those who are in need. However, the single charge on her record, which was a direct result of her victimization by her trafficker, has proven to be a hindrance in her pursuit of a career in public service.
I am so happy to tell you that there will no longer be a record of the criminal prosecution. Your record has been successfully expunged in Tennessee. We are honored to have helped this strong, resilient woman.
The petitioner has demonstrated exceptional resilience and strength by breaking free from her trafficker to build a life for herself on her own terms.
I gotta get back again. I gotta get back again to something. I got a lot to say, Please take me home. I got a lot to say.
Okay. Next up, we have another video, right? I think that's another video from our sponsors. No. Okay, I'm sorry. I have something wrong on the agenda. I'm very sorry about that. All right. Okay, well, good then. Wow, because I want to talk about that video. I think that was a really powerful video for several reasons, but in part because, you know, it really shows how criminalization of prostitution and this sort of law enforcement approach first really hurts people who are victims of sex trafficking, and also, you know, just people who are in prostitution for whatever reason, because, you know, still, if they're ever trying to move on from that, then they get saddled with the same problems that we saw in this video, this criminal record that then, you know, haunts them forever and sort of bars other avenues of employment. I just want to take a moment right before we dive into some questions and sort of just offer a few definitions or you know, vague definitions of terms, general definitions. You know, when we're talking about sex trafficking, there's a lot of different things people talk about when they talk about that. But, you know, legally, that is, you know, being in prostitution or commercial sex through force or fraud or coercion, or for anyone that is underage. When I'm talking about sex work, I'm talking about people who are, you know, doing this as a career, doing this by choice. But that's kind of it's a little bit of a false dichotomy. I think, you know, one of the reasons that this organization is good is because there's a sort of understanding that it doesn't exactly matter, you know, if someone's a sex worker by choice and then they're a victim of violence, or if, you know, they were forced in from the beginning or whatever. There's a need for services for people no matter what. So I think it's important when we're talking about this issue to remember that, you know, when we're talking about sex trafficking, it's not necessarily like people think in the movies. It's almost, you know, I've been covering this issue for about 7 years now, and I've read extensively and talked to people involved extensively, and you know, it's not usually anything like abduction or being necessarily physically held captive, but it often involves, you know, much more subtle forms of coercion, and it involves people who are runaways because they had a bad home life, and, you know, or they were being victimized maybe at home by relatives, and so they leave and then find someone else and end up exploited again. It involves people who are in, you know, just bad relationships, romantic relationships, and things like that. So I think, you know, a lot of times people have this idea of sex trafficking that doesn't match with the reality, but the reality is, you know, it can still end up just as devastating for the people who this does affect. So with that being said, we are going to start off. I wanted to ask Sarolyn, you know, if you've seen any evidence that the pandemic, which people have talked a lot about how it's caused the rise in all sorts of things, obviously poverty and, you know, economic hardship and maybe domestic violence. Have you seen evidence that it's caused an increase in sexual violence and exploitation?
Absolutely. As the video alludes to, this is a 44 million person modern day slavery. So there's so many people entrapped by slavery with no way out. And we have indeed seen an increase since March. Some of the things that are happening is with the stay home restrictions, it forced individuals to be with their perpetrators. With the close down of hotels, it forced individuals and perpetrators to find other avenues and venues to exploit individuals, whether they were minors or adults. The stay home restriction has caused economic hardships. I know there was a stimulus check, but many of my clients who would have been eligible for stimulus checks, their traffickers received them, or they went somewhere else. So the stimulus did not benefit any of the clients that I serve or many of the victims. There's increased alcohol sales that are documented through research that has been done. Homeschooling causes a problem because the children are on the internet. So children are being exploited because they're having to do school at home, oftentimes with their perpetrators. As I told you earlier, my perpetrator lived with me. So to stay at home would have been problematic. Just as many of my clients, it's familial trafficking, and there's familial domestic violence and abuse that's taken place. Loss of jobs, financial difficulties, increasing financial dependency upon the perpetrator, or causing individuals to look outside and for creative ways to meet their basic needs. So, I mean, there's just been a rippling effect. It's not only affected the individuals who have been exploited, but it's also affected the service providers. Service providers, their funding is cut because they can't take in as many people, because they can't do face-to-face contact, because they have to social distance the individuals. Social media, should I go there? I mean, there's just so many things that have contributed to the increased exploitation of individuals who are looking for an escape. The trust issues, because law enforcement was not as prevalent for some time, because law enforcement was even trying to protect themselves, and many of them were mandated to only take care of the most violent crimes, even though this is one of the most horrific crimes there is, but it doesn't fit that category. So if it's not murder or one of those, homicide or those crimes, so it just didn't fit the criteria for many. But we did see a huge increase in our child exploitation cases. Children who were being, pornography was being produced and sold and created on children that were in their homes. So there's been a rippling effect of the impact of COVID upon traffickers during the pandemic. And it's detrimental that we raise awareness, that we do what we can to support these individuals who are trying to survive and be recovered from these different criminal activities.
Thank you, Sarolyn. And we're going to come back to some of those issues later. But I want to ask a question of Shanika. How has working with survivors changed your attitude on or your outlook on things in any way, or change the way that you sort of think of not just of yourself, and also how you maybe approach other people involved in this issue?
So let me go back a little bit. So here I was from the age of 11 to 18 being trafficked in the United States. And I make sure that I say that because people don't believe that human trafficking is a United States issue. It's so easy to say the third world countries. So as a little girl, it was happening to me right in Miami-Dade County, Florida, and eventually across the United States. I never knew that I was a victim of anything. I was not taught that I was the victim of anything. I knew that sexual abuse at 9, pretty much that was my fault. According to my family, according to my community, that was my fault. The prostitution, quote unquote, as a kid was my fault. And I had to find my way out. And as I had my children and becoming a nurse around in my late 20s is when I heard someone speaking about childhood prostitution. And I was like, that was me. I was already a nurse professionally, already several years in the medical field. I just feel like now where I am currently a nurse at the University of Miami. We have a clinic there that we serve only human trafficking survivors. I believe my purpose and my career is married in one. So every day I get to do this. I get to help survivors. And so as a survivor advocate, I'm in the room professionally with doctors and making sure that I can advocate from a perspective, not only as a nurse and having the training of a nurse, but also as a survivor and speaking my truth and being able to give that type of care. I think where I am now, being a survivor advocate, I advocate from all perspectives. I would advocate from my nurse's perspective, my survivor perspective, my evangelistic perspective. I feel that my story has helped me professionally, and I have a lot to give back to this community. It also empowers every survivor that I come in contact with, that they too can overcome, and they too can become whatever they had a dream of as a little girl or as a little boy. And so that's what my story is. It's just an empowerment of every day to the people that I serve.
Thank you. Michelle, I want to ask you a sort of similar question. You mentioned, though, your previous career being involved with as an exotic dancer. Do you think that influenced people's, perceptions of you? And do you think that the stigma how did the stigma affect you? And how did you get over that?
Thanks for asking. I would be remiss not to say how incredible it is to be on a panel with these two other young ladies that are speaking. I've been so moved by their stories and their resiliency and how they just get out there and empower and lift up other women. And I assume some men, because little boys are more trafficked than people would ever imagine. But I'm just so honored to even be on this panel with you ladies. It has been so, just listening to you is, I wish we were in person. I know we can't be, but I would be hugging your necks. I just want you to know. I come from, like I said, I come from a bad place, and I joined the Army when I was 17 because I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get out of that bad place. Sexual assault in families is generational. It's something that you're taught. It's like a cultural thing. Your dad does it to you, so you do it to your kids do it to their kids. And so it was a lifestyle that we lived for. I mean, that was our life. We would tell people that we were being, sexually molested by our family, and they would say, well, that's the way it is, honey, And so I joined the Army. I got out, of the town, the community, and came back as a wife of at that time was a staff sergeant in the Army, and he became very abusive, and he started trying to assault me. And I had left my life at home so I could start over because I wanted something better. I knew that wasn't the way I had to live. And so when I was faced with that, I had to leave again, and I came back to Pensacola. I was homeless. I had nothing. And I had already had 2 children by this man. And so now I'm homeless as a woman veteran with 2 kids, and nobody would hire me because I didn't have a college degree. So what do? I didn't have any other choice. It was, I couldn't go to work for $10 an hour because daycare is like $30 an hour. So, and I know that both of the other ladies on this panel could certainly explain a million different scenarios where a woman is faced with the choice of do this to feed your family or do this to feed yourself, or what, or end up in jail, and on the streets. And so the choice to become an exotic dancer, I mean, of course it wasn't my top pick, but I did it. And I honestly, I don't know if I would take it back. I learned so much from being in that environment for many years. I was fortunate because I had already overcame the abusive home, and I knew where I came from, and every day I would go in there and I would fight, my own inhibitions to make sure I stayed on track. But I saw so many women come and go. I saw people die of drug overdoses. I mean, I saw women trafficked. I saw pimps come in. I mean, I saw it all. And I'll tell you, I came out with a college degree. My kids were taken care of. I never broke the law. And not that you have to, because a lot of these women, there were a lot of times I'd be in this scenario and the police would come in and they would be looking for somebody to arrest, and you don't even have to be doing anything, and you just happen to be the one that they decide, you know what, we're going to make an example of you, and they would arrest them. So it was by the grace of God that I made it through. But I'm going to tell you, it's been a journey. I just won a state house seat, and I'm the very first woman to ever be elected in this area. So not only did I overcome an abusive childhood and being an exotic dancer, raising my children, but I'm also thrived, and I've been uplifted, and just overcoming that has been really easy. Number one, I don't focus on all these negative people. I find a group of women that are always good to me, and I just call on them when I need them. And I'm always trying to be good to other women. That's the worst thing we can do as victims of any type of circumstance, whether it's human trafficking or sexual exploitation or just domestic abuse, is to judge others. And so I let the judgment of people fall off my back, and I just remind myself that I am going to be the example of empowerment for other women in this community and in this state and in this nation, to say, listen, don't let people judge you. You know, we have got to come together. We've got to overcome the stigma and just focus on what we can do for one another. So I actually don't hide that fact. Whenever I have a top secret clearance when I finally got on my feet and got the degree and all those things. I worked for the Naval Education Training Command, which is a government job. And I got that job, and I wrote on there, exotic dancer on the thing. I filed taxes on that. I've never ran from my truths. And so I think that that's been the reason why it's been such a journey for me to be able to build. And it sounds like these other ladies were the same way. They both were very resilient and stood strong in their beliefs that they are good people and they can make a difference. And what has happened to them in their past does not define who they are. And it certainly doesn't regulate what's going to happen to them or the community from them in the future.
Thank you. I also worked as a dancer at a strip club in college, and I also would not take back the experience and saw, you know, a lot of good and bad things there. I think it's important that to sort of, as you mentioned, that, you know, people come in and out of this, and whatever their reasons are for being involved, a lot of times the presence of the police does not help, because, like you said, they're just looking for someone to arrest, and they're sort of, you know, going about this as a vice crime still, where it's like they're just looking to make an arrest of women who are involved in sex work in whatever way. And I think too often when we talk about how communities can get involved and help too, we also focus on this. I see a lot of things that, you know, federal agencies will put out, and they'll be like, here are the signs of sex trafficking. And they're often just the signs of poverty, or the signs of maybe if someone is involved in sex work or something like that. And I worry sometimes that it encourages people to profile people. I mean, we've seen a lot of cases at airports now where it's all people have just been calling the cops on like multiracial families and things like that. So, you know, I'm going to turn this to Shanika. How do you get the community involved in helping people without sort of just, you know, encouraging sort of this criminalization, or encouraging, I'm not saying cops should ever be involved, of course they should, but how do you know, we've been talking about how it's often involved in families, and it's not what we think. It's not so obvious. It's often hidden away in family situations or things like that. So how do people get involved and actually help in their local communities?
So Elizabeth, you kind of took right where I go. Like, so I focus on community. Like I have a nonprofit. I'm the executive director. It's called Guiding Light Outreach, Inc. And it's about being a lighthouse in a community. My community was my dark place. More men in my community that knew me as a little girl, knew my house, knew my parents. They could have done something before I met this person that was quote unquote the pimp, quote unquote the trafficker, quote unquote the bad guy. The gang rapes that happened in my community by the men who knew my parents that could have taken me home. They did not do that. So when we talk about community, I'm very big on community, because I did not see one adult woman that wanted to help me. They talked about me. So this is what my life looked like. All the young kids my age, the young girls were taught not to be my friend because I was too fast. I was the hot girl. I was the one asking for this. And so I could not have a boyfriend around my age, because they were taught I'm not girlfriend material, right? And so all of the adult women who this was most likely their boyfriend, the father of their kids, their husbands, someone in their family, they knew that these men were having sex with me. But those adult women had conversations about me. They shamed me as I walked the streets. But the men were having conversations about me too. Oh, she's easy. I'll get her there. But here I was, 11, 12 years old, a little broken girl. So I look at the community, and we need lighthouses in our communities. And what that means to me is something what you said. Look at the precursors. I tell anybody that's watching this, look at the precursors. And I call the precursors the doorways to the vulnerabilities of human trafficking. Human trafficking is about vulnerabilities. I see a lot of organizations going after grants, just coming on board, but they want to solve human trafficking. This is what they put in their grant, but they don't think about affordable housing.
Right.
They don't think about poverty, homelessness. They don't think about childhood sexual abuse. They don't
Yeah.
think about a foster care system. These are all our precursors. They're there in our communities, single families, moms struggling. Who's the mentorship for our young boys? The brokenness in our communities is the doorway to human trafficking. There's no way we're going to solve human trafficking unless we get the community together. So when I talk to the community, I say we have to unlearn a lot of bad things. You have to unlearn the white van is going to kidnap your kid. You have to unlearn that I don't let my kids go with strangers, because the person who's molesting your kid is not really a stranger. We have to have the conversation about sex amongst our children, because most children are sexually abused by another sibling. We have to unlearn a lot of things. And I'm a very outspoken person. I can go professional if you want me to, but I like to get on people's level. If you believe that we're not talking about sex in our communities, in our churches, in our homes, we missed it already. We can't fix the human trafficking problem. We have to start right there. And sometimes I get people where I say, what your grandma them told you was wrong. And they're like, because people don't want you to talk about their grandma and their mamas, but we have to go back, because most times the predator stays in the families and the abused person get thrown out of the families. I just believe community.
That's right.
Community actions, community involvement. We have to go there to take care of all of our issues. I just think about the awareness that it's going to take for people to really understand human trafficking. I thank Michelle for being honest. I love straightforwardness. If you tell me that you chose to be a sex worker, me as the victim of human trafficking, I'm not here to fight with you. I'm here to ask you, when you're going in a strip club every night and because you chose to be there, nobody forced you, nobody got you there by fraud or coercion, but you're going there. I need to be able to work with you, you adult person who's making this conscious decision. I want to know, how could you work with me who's trying to break the chains of human trafficking? While you're going to the strip clubs, can you please look out for anybody else that's there, that's not there willingly? While you're going to the strip clubs, because we're not going, even in an organization that does outreach, not going every night, can you please know the numbers to call if you see them out there? That's all I'm asking any sex worker. And I build relationships. Even with my ex-pimp of my community, all I want to know, you did your time in prison, you come back out here, you tell me, what made you think that was acceptable? What made you think that's acceptable? Let's have a conversation about it. I believe that community work is where this work really begins. We can go to Congress, we can ask for the money, because we do need money, right? But we have to start going in our communities, unlearn some of the things that we've learned, relearn, educate ourselves, and learn a different way. That's my take on community. So I thank you for going in there, because that's my stance. That's what my whole organization is about. Community. I was arrested at 18 for prostitution. It's still on my records now. I had to write a lot of letters to the Board of Nursing, but guess what? Nobody asked me, how many years had you been doing this? Nobody asked me that question. And so right in my community, I was missed. And even my police officer from my community, he knew it all. He saw the sex tape and he told me, I saw that tape. He had the sex tape. So we have to talk about our community, talk about the cops that's coming to serve our community. Do they really know the community? I just believe community is the way. So what would I tell anybody watching this? Be a part of your community. Come together in unity to help your community. You cannot go outside of your community. You see the child, don't speak badly about that kid. You see the struggling mom, do something. And if you are that person in your community, ask for help. My parents did not know where to find help. They did not have the education to get help. So build that community for yourself. That's my take on that.
Thank you so much. I'm really glad you mentioned that, people want to fight human trafficking and that's not just, a thing that you can just necessarily fight directly. I think, like you said, like people are just like, what do I do? People are always, because I write about this, people are always asking me, well, if I do want to help, what do I do? And I say, some of the same things you were saying there, like give money to your local like emergency shelters or women's shelters, like give money to things that help people in emergency situations or in poverty in your neighborhood. There's like a lot of sex worker mutual aid funds too that have been springing up, and donation funds and things like that. Because a lot of times people that are very precariously sort of on the margins of they're doing this by choice, but if bad circumstances hit, then they might be coerced or more likely to be involved with someone that they normally wouldn't, and then they get caught up in a situation where they're the victims of violence and things like that. So I think that, like you said, that we can't just be like, we're gonna get human trafficking. You need to go at all these different sort of resources and factors. Which brings us to Sarolyn, and I wanted to ask you about, during the pandemic, has that affected the resources that are available to people out there in their communities, and how are you dealing with that?
Absolutely. Before I talk about the resources of COVID, I need to just really make a correction because I keep hearing children being referred to as prostitutes. No child can ever be a prostitute. And even Shanika, she was not a prostitute. She was sexually exploited. And that verbiage has to change. You cannot be a part of a community if you don't know what it is you're seeing. Hence, kids prostituting. She just fast. That is what the community is saying because they're not educated. So you cannot tame what you can't name. So first of all, we got to educate people. We've got to tell people what this looks like, the reality of it. It's not the white van. It's not taken. And it's so critical that we educate and raise the level of awareness, not just when you talk about the community, I mean every entity of it, the faith of the churches, the police officers, the stores, the hotels, the restaurants, because individuals who are being victimized are going to these places during COVID. They're going to these places. They're in the convenience store buying condoms. They're using the restrooms for sink baths, for the quick wipe-offs. So they're in these places. There are strange things happening, but no one knows how to name it. No one knows what it is. And so it's not just a homeless person, it's not just a runaway. The police officers are seeing them repetitively. And it's like, oh, they're just running away. If a person is running away from something, they're not just running away from something, they're also running to something. I think that's important for us in the community to know. Healthcare workers, 88% of them have encountered a trafficking survivor, but only 6% of them recognize it. That's a problem. That's the awareness thing. And so I think it's so important with the individuals that I help with rescue and recovery. During COVID, we've not been able to do the sting operations. We usually do sting operations. I'm right there at the hotel when we intervene for an individual who is being trafficked. And I get to be with her or him from the moment that we recover them. My agents are trauma informed. And I just must add too, that as a result of COVID, our numbers in our office, I work in the Dallas-Fort Worth office, our numbers have doubled last year's numbers. So even with COVID, we've done some great work. We've rescued and recovered a lot of individuals, and we are making it work with innovative opportunities and being creative because the resources are not always there. They were slim and scarce before COVID, and they're even more scarce now because, like I said, programs are not funded to the fullest. And as Shanika mentioned, many of the programs who are funded, they're getting the funded, but they're not doing the work. They're not doing the work where it matters. And so when you have an individual you have an organization that is not doing what needs to be done, there's no auditing, there's no checks and balances for these individuals, these people that are getting money. And the other problem is many of the programs don't know what they're dealing with. They have a trafficking story, but it does not meet the bulk. It does not speak to the heart of the need. And so therefore they mislabel, they shame, they judge, and they do things inappropriately to individuals who have really been victimized, wrongly exploited, accused. I mean, I could go on and on. So it's so
and they re-traumatize and re-exploit the people that they're serving.
Absolutely. And the thing is the vulnerability. Shanika mentioned it. If I had to say anything about anybody, vulnerability is what captures this. And it's so important also for everyone to recognize that these are not foreigners, as Shanika said. From my caseload at Homeland Security, 98% of them are United States citizens. They are domestic minor sex trafficking. They are our youth with no place to go many of the time because that 17-year-old who's running away from foster care, who's being raped in the foster care system, who's been exploited, whose foster dad is sleeping with her, or whose group home is doing XYZ, where does she go? The trafficker is meeting her down the street when she runs away. So that's really, really important. But in my job, when I rescue and recover somebody, from the time that I encounter them, I never terminate a case. So I have clients from when I started with Homeland Security, I still partner with them because the healing journey is extensive, it's resource intense, and it does not take place over 4 years even. So programs with 9 months, they're really insufficient and inadequate. They do not, you cannot undo trauma that spans a lifetime in 9, 12 months, not even 2 years. So it's so important that they have partnership and community to help them transition and to meet those roadblocks with their messed up credit. That's one of the things that I do. I help them repair their credit. I connect them with legal. I connect them with medical health, mental health. I coach them. I teach them. I educate them because that's what I do. That's my profession as a psychotherapist. And so I have to educate them in order to get them to go see a therapist who they don't trust because they've seen these therapists who are ill-equipped all their lives, who's only re-traumatized them. So I think it's so important that we understand the complexity and the chaoticness of what we experience when we advocate and we partner with these individuals. And I myself was the same way. I was all over the place emotionally when I was going through my healing process. I didn't know what was going on until I went to college and got educated. So it's my college education that equipped me to understand why I was acting out the way that I was acting out, why I was emotionally regulated, why I would freeze in intimacy with my husband and go back to being an 8-year-old. You know, it was my education that equipped me to equip them to understand and normalize and empower them and help them to take their voice back. And so I do that regardless of the need. I provide comprehensive equipping for them to go and be completely restored and resilient in whatever life they choose.
Thank you, Sarolyn. I wanted to just go because you mentioned the stings part, and so much of what you're saying makes sense to me. That part doesn't, because I feel like when we're talking about this, you know, one of the things you keep saying is that a lot of times having a, you know, when I follow these cases, what will happen is if there is a third party involved, if there's a pimp or a trafficker, they'll just send, if someone's underage, they'll send that underage victim back to their foster care or back to their group home where they might be being victimized. Or if it is an adult who is doing it willingly, then they'll just arrest them for prostitution. And then they get the same harms where then they've got this criminal record that helps them never get out. So, you know, it's really hard for me to reconcile this sting approach with the sort of victim-centered and trauma-centered approach. And you know, is there a way, do you think that there's a way that we can actually just focus on the bad guys without doing these things that ensnare a lot of people, or just send foster kids back to their group homes because we just think, well, that's better than you with the trafficker, which is true, but maybe that there's something going on at home. It seems like a lot of people does not follow up on that.
So I'm so glad you asked the question because it reminded me of the audiovisual that we watch that is not indicative of what my office and our agents do, because those agents were not trauma informed. That would never happen at our sting operation, what we saw in the audio visual. It's true, that does happen in a lot of places, but when we have an operation, our victims are never charged. Even when we know they're guilty, we never charge them. So when we do an operation, we have separate rooms and locations in our place so that the perpetrator is held in one place. And even if it's a bottom girl or a bottom bitch is the person who will dress, drug, and who will inflict punishment or harm upon the individual who is being trafficked to get her to cooperate. She's the traffickers or the pimp's right hand girl or guy. And so it's so important to understand that even her, we look at her as a victim, and our goal is to rescue and recover her. So for our office, we don't do business like most offices do. Otherwise, I couldn't participate in it ethically. I just would not have anything to do with that. And so our agents are trauma informed. They are simply trying to see if this person was trafficked. Most of the time, we already know that because we've been doing surveillance undercover. And so we know that they are victims, and we treat them like that from the onset. They are with me and other advocates. The police does not visit with them because they are a victim. We get them housing, we get them nourishment, we get them counseling, whatever they choose. We give them information to equip them. If you're not ready right now, if you don't have a home to go to, you want a home, I have shelter set up for you. If you want to go back to your job or to another city, we can help you, but we have resources there, organizations and agencies that can partner with you to be rescued and recovered. We have drop-in centers. So we have a wraparound system and program and process that we utilize when we do use that type of intervention. Sometimes we have to use that type of intervention because you can't just go get them from the street. You can't just go get them from the trap house. So when we do utilize that in the DFW area, in the SAC Dallas office, it's trauma informed and the victim never gets a record. This is from the federal side. And so it's done very strategically, and it's done with a lot of care and nurturing and trauma informed processes and procedures and protocols, if that makes sense.
That does, and I know that it's different everywhere. There's some crazy practices I've seen with Homeland Security specifically hiring undercover operatives who sort of go in there and get sort of sex acts from people to see if that there might be victims. But I also appreciate that there's a lot of agencies that are trying to change, and a lot of task forces and groups that are trying to change and bring in more people like you. So I think,
Elizabeth, part of that is because when you have a victim advocate who is trauma informed, educated, I can educate my agents. That's a no-no.
Yeah.
We don't do that. You're worse than the pimp when you do X, Y, Z. And I will call them to the carpet, because if I'm going to have my client who has just come out of this horrific experience, if I'm going to have her interact, and if I'm going to try to get her to use her voice and hopefully persecute or prosecute the individual, I need her to trust me at least. So I don't work with agents that I don't trust or that are sketchy or that have issues, and I will report them. That's what Sarolyn does, because I have no tolerance for being a part or participant in re-victimization. I'm part of the community, as Shanika said. And so as part of the community, it is critical for me to change the face of law enforcement. All law enforcement is not bad. There are so many people who do it wrong, but there are so many who do it right. And so I think that's important for us to recognize and acknowledge that there are some good ones, and we do have a lot of education to do because there's a lot of unknowns.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I want to move on to Michelle and ask you if, now that you are going to be a legislator, how do you think that your past experiences will they inform your current policy positions, and will they, inform your work in any way?
Well, they most certainly will. I share my story quite often as a victim of sexual abuse as a child, and my history in the community as a young adult. And I have conversations all over the state. We're lucky in one aspect and not so lucky in the other aspect. The state of Florida has mandated human trafficking circuits all over the state where we have to have these task force, and we're required by law to come together and really share information. But we also are unfortunate because we have what's called the I-10 corridor. I-10 is the interstate that runs all the way from California to the edge of Florida. And in the Panhandle, it's very easy to come and go. In Pensacola specifically, we are a high traffic area because you can come from just about anywhere, but you have to come through us. So we have a lot of trafficking, not just human trafficking, but drug trafficking and other things. So we experience a lot of it as the rest of the United States does. But in this specific scenario, we're fortunate to have leadership that does understand and believe that this is an issue. For us, we have a local advocacy organization called Gulf Coast Kids House, and we are the one-stop shop it's for children, but a majority of what they see are some of the most egregious sex trafficking and sex victimization issues that you could possibly imagine. And I've been on that board and with that organization for 15 years. So I've been very active in it already, but as a state lawmaker, I'll be able to help advocate for the programs that need funding. I'll be able to help advocate for the laws that might affect the folks in a positive or in a negative way. You know, some of our laws are hindering and some of our laws aren't strenuous enough, and it just depends on the circumstance. And a lot of things fall locally on the local level, but I think that at the state level, we can set the precedent.
Do you support any level of decriminalization or legalization of prostitution as a way to sort of, or deregulation of that in a way of adults that are consenting? Do you think that would help with fighting, needing to fight cases that involve violence and underage people?
Well, I can't say if you put a law in front of me, I would vote for or against it in any capacity. That's a very detailed. You made it so simple. I can't just say yes or no. Yes, of course. I do support women. I support victims of abuse. I support the freedom. I support liberty. I'm more of a libertarian than I am a Republican. I don't think one thing that I really disagree with, it's not quite the prostitution part, but here in my community, you have to file for a license to be a dancer, an exotic dancer. And when you do that, all of your information is public. So now if somebody sees me at the club and they want to come back and find out, they just go to the city and they file a public records request for a dancer named Mia, and they're going to get all of my information. Now they can come find me. So there's a lot of things that I don't agree with and a lot of things that I do agree with. But as far as the liberties are concerned, anything that frees up liberties, I do support. But specifically, it's just in such an intricate conversation to say what exactly would prostitution be? Is that a 16-year-old on the street, that is doing that because that's what they think they're supposed to do?
Well, I don't think anybody wants to legalize that, but I think you're right to say that there's a lot of stuff that can be done short of doing that. Like you said, like the registration law, which I know can lead to stalkers and things like that. Like that's the kind of thing that can be overlooked when we're talking about the sort of.
I think we need more protections. Yeah, we need more protections for the women and less access to women's information. Absolutely. I mean, as we've talked about, this whole thing is fundraising for women to help them expunge their records in the first place. Why is it so hard for us to do that? And why do I have to explain to you what I was doing 4 years ago for you to think it's okay to expunge my record or to help me out? It's like we shouldn't have to go through all of that.
In Texas, we're having legislation in Texas that if you are a trafficking survivor, your record is automatically expunged. You don't have to go through processes and getting legal representation if you are a trafficking survivor and we have a police case for you.
Right.
You don't have to go through that cycle.
And
Seems like we
that's
should
where I
add that
was different, because that means I had to go to the police. I had to be able to tell my story. And that's where I find that a lot of the services are so tied into that. I had to have a case that was processed through Homeland or through the state attorney's office. Most cases, when people get out, that's not the case. Like, even for shelters here, one of the shelters here in Miami-Dade County, you have to prove that you are homeless. But what if I slept in each hotel? How do I prove that I was being prostituted hotel to hotel? Do you want me to go and ask the hotel front desk to sign a document for me? I just believe that we have a long way to go, state by state in this country, that really eradicates trafficking. We have so many issues that people aren't free. And so let me say this: what Amara is doing tonight, I'm so grateful. I look back at my story and I remember educating the West Palm Beach Bar Association, and there was a room full of lawyers and judges, and having to tell my story. I came out with one charge of prostitution, but when I look back, I could have gotten all the drug charges. Because every time I was told to take drugs into a state penitentiary inside my vagina, no pimp was going to come bail me out of that. I look at the work that this organization is doing tonight, and I think about every survivor that is in Miami-Dade County trying to restore their lives, but they have cases in other states. Holistically, what Amara is doing tonight to provide these legal services needs to be replicated, duplicated. It needs to be all over the United States, and we have to have something more consistent. I'm here in Dade County calling another state asking, and they don't have the same services. Right. They don't provide the same services. So we cannot say state by state. I don't know. I know we're the United States, right? But we're still so far from united on some of the decisions that need to be made for freedom, just freedom. People to have freedom in life. Just think about that. So what Amara is doing, and I did talk to Lori, and I said to her, I'm so grateful for what you're doing in DC. Could you please advocate to get a group of attorneys in every state to do the same practices? It's so needed. It's so needed. I just needed to say that.
Shanika, and another thing is, you talk about the need to prove. What I've discovered, even personally, is that so many times that's because the systems have been abused and misused by hustlers. Mm-hmm. And so that's why shelters and organizations, and even some legal organizations who do something similar to Amara, they have been asking for a law enforcement or validation of victimization from somebody, because there are too many people that are exploiting good things. Yeah. And when things are misused and abused, it causes individuals to have to put in place checks and balances, which hurts the people that are not going to go to the police because they have no trust. And so it leaves this gap in services that we have to come up with solutions for. But you're absolutely right. Everybody's not going to go to the police. And what I've done with those individuals that I've encountered via other people who just know me from my work in the community since 1995 is I find other alternatives for them. And so, and when I get those other alternatives, I can usually get an organization who is not government to validate their victimization, because there are organizations who will help those that don't have a police history or connection. And so that's unfortunate. That's one of the challenges. But you're right. We need some standardization across the United States in order for us to have some checks and balances to better serve those that are suffering silently.
Yeah, I think when we say that, if we think about a county line, like, so from county to county is usually one street over and you're in a different county, or a state line. You go from one state to the next state. And I think about, like, I was also trafficked by a truck driver. So as he delivered his loads from state to state, I was in his truck being taken from state to state. Just that easy. Your victim is transported across a line, that in another state, she won't get the same opportunity or services 3 miles back. That is where we have to come together and figure out holistically, how do we as a country restore people? And it's not going to be everybody having a different agenda. That's where I am with this.
And Shanika, on that same note, what I do for my victims is every state that they've been to, I do crime victims compensation for every state. So if my state is different and I know every state they've been to, we fill out an application for benefits and services from crime victims compensation for every state that they were trafficked in. And so that's something that advocates can do to better serve their clients. We can hear you, Elizabeth.
We can't hear you.
Unmute your mic, Liz.
Because I was having feedback trouble, and now I'm so sorry, everyone. Just going to say real quick then, a unifying question here at the end, I guess, that sort of piggybacks on what you guys were just talking about is, how do we help victims move from beyond just, having, maybe if there's a perpetrator they're in court, or this person gets this, this certified program, but how do we help them actually to thrive and sort of move beyond just the initial step of not being a victim anymore and sort of rebuild a life? Just can you guys give, the quickest, I know this is a big question and this is a quick answer, but what do you think are the most important steps towards that? We'll just start at Sarolyn and then Michelle and then Shanika, because I can see you guys in that order on the video.
Now, Miss Sarolyn, you have to unmute.
Okay, I was about to say, I hate to take Shanika's word community. I call it connection, but connectedness is really the key to me, healthy connections. And so in helping them to move, they need comprehensive connections, which is that community that Shanika is talking about. And I hate to say it, but it's not going to be the government and it's not going to be these organizations, but it's really going to be the faith community that eradicates human traffic and modern day slavery. And that's what I found that I've gotten the most help from, is not having to go through the red tapes and all of the loops to get services and get support for individuals who are struggling and who don't meet the mandates for the organizations or the people with the grants. So I've had to go to those creative alternatives to get support for those individuals, but they need complete connectedness. And what I mean by that is I mean that they need, first of all, they need an advocate who is authentic. That's where it starts. They need authentic advocacy who is not going to stop until they get to be victorious from their situation. And that's helping them to triumphantly overcome the tragedy that they experienced by getting permanency in housing, by getting mental health stability, by getting spiritually sound and physically fit in every aspect.
Thank you. Michelle?
Yes. Well, I think we're all saying the same thing here. It does start with the community. And I think that we obviously believe that with our hearts, because all of us are full-time in this community advocating for all of these things. So we need a bunch of us in every community in America. And how do we get there? By doing stuff like this, by hosting panels like this, by making this conversation relevant, by removing the stigma of the conversation. I think that I can't remember which one of the ladies was discussing earlier about how we were teaching children, and we have to talk about sex. We have to say these things. And in our community specifically, we actually do human trafficking training in the schools now, even in elementary school. It's stranger danger. It's not necessarily the human trafficking conversation that we've had a lot here, but it's a beginning to the conversation. And we do talk about, also we do train about in the elementary schools, you know, about where we should and shouldn't be touched and by family. So they do it in a way that's obviously good for elementary school students, but we need organizations like that and partnerships like that from nonprofits to be able to come into the schools and be trusted in those schools to reach out to those children. We need the churches, like she just said. We certainly, you know, faith-based organizations have been the key to just about everything, you know, in our community that's good. Grassroots is how we get anything done in America. I think that's how we were founded, right? So I can't agree with her more. I won't take up a lot of time. I know that we're going to have some other great comments, but community is a good word. I think that we've all been kind of echoing that, and it will be resonating with me for the next few days for sure. But just really making sure that we have those connections, not just the community, but connect that community and have those partnerships with the school districts, with the churches, with the hospitals. The hospitals, we haven't even talked about the hospitals and the nurses and you know what it's like for a woman victim to go into a hospital, you know, and have to tell that story. But yeah, I think that community is the good word for the night.
Yeah. So let me give a perspective. So I believe that we have to develop places for people to belong and heal. Where do someone return? Where's their family? Where is their community? I remember being arrested at 18. At 18, got arrested. That was my first time ever being arrested. I was pregnant. So I got out of the life pregnant with nowhere to return. Couldn't really call my family because they didn't understand. The church was still preaching against what I was doing without having any discernment about what was happening. I didn't go to a therapist because stigma there. So we have to develop, where do this person go? Where is that? What does that look like? Who's going to be there? Who is going to be in that room? I've been in sting operations as well. I've left my nursing job because I wanted to be in a room with the survivor, that they would know that they're not there alone. I believe if we're going to move forward, so taking back my experience, I had to remove those labels that was placed upon me. So when I talk about, well, the training of human trafficking, they'll tell you something about branding and the girls are branded. When I think about branding, I think about a product. You don't get to brand a product without a label. And so I think back about my community that labeled me. And then when you think about any label, you look on the back of the label and you read the products. And the products tells you what's inside, the ingredients that's inside of that particular product. If we have communities that's telling our young children that they are nothing, they will never be nothing. If you read the back of anything that you buy, it tells you the first thing on that product of ingredients list, that's what's the most contents within that ingredient. I mean, in that product. So if that little girl was told that you're gonna be just like your mama, you're gonna be a whore, it's in her. It's in her, and that's from the community. That's from within the people who's around that individual the most. So we have to go into our communities, and we have to allow even the adults to heal. We have to allow even the parents to heal. We have to allow the grandma that was sexually abused, that was still kept a secret, to heal. Mm-hmm. Our community work, and because I'm an ordained evangelist, I received the honorary doctorate from a theological school. So I am Dr. Shanika Amper Haynes. We have to go to the church. And the church, you all might say, but it's not a fix-all, because there's some really hurt people in the church. Right. So we have to make sure that along the way that we're helping people heal. We're helping survivors. The resources have to be available. Those choices and the options have to be available. If you gave no one an option or choices, then you left them no choice. If you told me the only way that I can feed my kids by prostituting, then guess what? My choice would be to prostitute. But if we don't put the choices that's available out there for the people, create policies that's gonna eradicate them from the systemic chains, we have to think about even the systemic change, racism. We have to get to the root of the issues. Any survivor, and even in that, there's a division. I don't know how come. So when we talk about human trafficking, there's a glorification for sex trafficking more than label trafficking. And then when you're talking about the victims, okay, the blonde white girl gets a little bit more empathy than the black girl. We have to stop that. We as a people, we have to be the change of that. And it starts within you. So I empower each person to go tonight and do a self-evaluation. If you've ever thought something and you made a judgment call on someone, but you didn't know how they got there. If you made a judgment call about every prostitute that you saw, or you made a judgment about every girl that's a stripper, then it starts with you. One of my great mentees here, she says, you help by what you think. So if you think negatively about that person, believe me, what you provide and the services that you provide to that person will reflect what you think about that individual. The justice system, criminal justice system, they already label a lot of people. So when they go, you don't get a fair chance. I don't care how much we say equality. We have to start the work within ourselves. So when a survivor comes in front of you, you give them a fair opportunity, not based on their story, but based on that they're human and they deserve equal human rights. I'm going to tell you an analogy that I always think about, that God had given me this. Community. You get a little Yorkie dog, you spend thousands of dollars on your Yorkie dog, and he goes missing. Human rights. Everybody put signs up in the community, and they start driving around, and they say, have you seen my dog? It's just like family to me, right? When the dog is found, all efforts are put into finding the dog. When the dog is found, we want to make sure the dog don't have parvo, he don't have worms. We pay a big vet fee to take care of the dog. And then we go home and we start thinking, how did he get out? Why did he get out? Oh, that was that day I had to go straight to another meeting and I didn't go home. And guess what? You make the corrections. You fix the hole in the gate. You make sure that the dog can't get out. Human rights. A kid goes missing in our community. The family don't even want to tell the neighbors that my kid is missing because people would judge that that's a bad house. So nobody's asking. Most kids that run away are directly in their community within those 24 hours of running away. But we're not looking for them because nobody wants to be judged as a bad parent. When the kid is found, unless they call Miss Shanika and say, Miss Shanika, can you get me an STD test? Guess what? Nobody's taking a kid immediately for a checkup because that's putting the family. I can't request no time off from work. You put yourself in that situation. I ain't got time. And then nobody goes and say, why did this kid run away? What's the brokenness in the home? Human rights. Human rights. I don't think my nursing degree is going to go into human rights, but I want everybody to look in the mirror and know that you're a human and that you have rights and that someone have the same rights as you, a right to freedom, a right to freedom. That's all. If you think about that, I don't care if it was because they crossed the border illegally and now someone exploited that dream of being free. I don't care if they ran away and somebody exploited that. The stories of human trafficking is just not as simple as somebody snatched me. Some of these people are really chasing their dreams. I know moms leaving foreign countries to believe if I can go and work in another country, I'll better take care of my children. And so tonight, I just say, we need to get to a place that we love ourselves, because you only can love others the way that, with the same love that you love yourself. So love yourself, find your self-love, and then replicate that, mirror that towards another human. That's what I would say. That's where it is.
Thank you so much. And that was beautiful. And thanks to all of our panelists. This has been such an amazing discussion, and I am really glad that I got to be a part of it. Thank you very much. And I'm going to turn it back over to Lori to close things off here.
Hey, everybody. I just want to let you guys know that I have been sitting back. I have been soaking it in. I have been listening to each and every word that you guys are saying. And I think that's the main purpose of today, is to really just hear a lot of the perspectives and opinions and know that we all have to be at the table. It takes politicians, it takes the federal government, it takes survivor advocates, it takes individuals, journalists, editors abroad. It takes everybody to ask those hard questions, but it really does take all of us, and not one of us can do it alone. And of course, it takes Amara and nonprofit organizations as well, which we need your funding for, but I'll plug that in the end. But I do want to just say that I really, really, really do, words can't even describe. I really appreciate you guys. I know we took an hour and a half of your time. I want to say thank you to our veterans who are on the panel. So, woo! On this Veterans Day, I want to say thank you guys for taking your time out. I also want to do a really good plug and just say thank you to our sponsor for this event, Erase Child Trafficking. They are an amazing nonprofit organization that helps sponsor this event. Sarolyn, Shanika, they both work with Erase Child Trafficking. And so make sure you check the comments. They will be putting their website in there. You can go. They do direct client services. The things we were talking about, finding survivors and individuals who are in need, impacted by commercial sex, finding them housing, finding them resources, connecting them to places like Amara to where they can get expungements and protections from abusers and things of that nature. So Erase Child Trafficking is an amazing organization ran by Sandy. She's an amazing individual. If you haven't already met her, you should go to their site. But then they also do one of the greatest things that I've had a part of is law enforcement training. And so that goes to Elizabeth's point and to Sarolyn's point, which is we have state and local law enforcement officers out there that need the training. They need to be trauma-informed, victim-centered. They need to understand the complexities of the issue. They need to understand both sides of the issue, whether it be human trafficking or sex workers. They just need to understand, and they need to be brought into the community of practice, because ultimately we can't really kick them out. They're going to be there. So we need to educate them and inform them. But they do some great law enforcement training where literally, I would say like 2 days, 3 days of it is victim-centered, trauma-informed, bringing them up to speed. And Sarolyn, she speaks, Shanika speaks there as well. So I just want to give a plug for them. So without further ado, I'm going to let you guys go, and I'm going to do a little donation plug, but I just want to wave at you guys. Everybody say thank you for your support. We are so excited to have you guys, and we look forward to working with you guys soon. Thank you.
Thank
you. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. Okay, so while I'm here, the last 5 minutes of this, yes, we're about 9 minutes behind, but I mean, we got all women panel. So we're doing really, really good, okay? Because we have a lot of things to say, a lot of important opinions, a lot of perspectives, a lot of knowledge, okay? So I just want to let you guys know that once again, if you are out there, you're a veteran. Today is Veterans Day. I really appreciate your service. Amara appreciates your service. Okay. The other thing I want to talk about is our upcoming event. We do have an event coming up. It's called the No Show Ball. It's on December 1st. So make sure you go to amaralegal.org to check it out and how you can donate. Now, without further ado, I just want to let you guys know that we can't do this without you. Amara cannot do this without you, and we need your support during these unprecedented times. Okay. So if you can, please, please, please go to amaralegal.org. Yep, look at that. .org/donate. If you go to amaralegal.org/donate, you will have all of the ways that you'll be able to donate. Those ways out, the Amazon Smile, the address to send your check, or even just go to a direct link where you can provide your funding via our Network for Good website. Okay, so please check us out. No donation is too small. Okay, $1, $1 million, whatever. Please just go to amaralegal.org/donate. And with that, I just want to say good night, guys. I love y'all. Stay tuned for our next event, No Show Ball, December 1st. It's going to be the most amazing thing you've ever seen in your life. Yes, we will be dressed up. Well, at least I will. Okay. So without that, I would want to say thank you, guys. I love y'all and have a great night.